Loud. Welcome back. It is always a good day. When I wake up, I give thanks, and I know that today is a day that I am privileged to introduce you to another intriguing human being. And boy, are you in for a treat today. The Next Room podcast. Let me just tell you a little bit about why death, why dying, why grief, why green burial practices, why any of it. Um, Years ago, I was in traditional radio and I was throwing down Pink songs at a radio station in San Diego. And my husband threw an article at me in the newspaper, right? This is how long ago we were still getting the daily newspaper delivered. And it had an article about podcasting. And he's like, Jane, you should do a podcast. And I'm like, I don't know anything about podcasting. He said, well, it looks like it's the wave, the future. You know, you've got the studio out in the garage. Why don't you just think about it? So I did. And then, of course, you know, when someone puts something in your head and then all those little breadcrumbs kind of start coming together, a buddy of mine had a network in Detroit called Empower Radio. And he got a hold of me and said, I think you should do a podcast. And I'm like, what am I going to do a podcast about? So I started a podcast called Voices of Vision, and I was actually getting other people to tell me about their passions. And believe it or not, it was like pulling teeth every week. I mean, I interviewed every single friend I had and asked them about their passions, but I kept running out of guests. It was very odd because you would think it would have taken off, but it didn't. So I got a hold of Brent and I said, I'm just not going to do this anymore. And he said, well, why don't you do a show about your passion? So I just sit with that for a bit. My mother had crossed over to the next room, and then my big sister had left to go to the next room. And I was super, super deep in my grief. And all I could think about was my fascination with the afterlife and what comes next, and death and grief and all of it. And so I got a hold of him and I said, I think I want to do a podcast about death. And he laughed and he said, I love it. Write it up. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know the approach that you would take. And I said, well, we'll talk about everything. It's not just going to be about the act of dying, but of everything that goes with it. Um, and so that's how the podcast got started. So here we are years later, over 18 countries. The cities that come in are just remarkable. Houston, for the fourth week in a row, is my number one city. Thank you, Houston. I've been to your lovely city, and it is a really cool place. As a matter of fact, my sister-in-law used to live there. So thank you for the downloads. Thank you for the follows on Facebook, Instagram. The YouTube channel is starting to grow. It really is remarkable that people want to open up and communicate with me about what is next in the next room and also what is here that we're dealing with, this life experience as we know it. So that was a long way to go. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for always supporting me in this silly show about death. It's not silly, it's actually pretty great. You're going to love this guest today. From math teacher to mystic. I'm holding the book up for my YouTube people. Look at my sticky notes. Kelley, let me say it. Let's see, you said it rhymes with cerveza. Baeza. Kelley Baeza? Is that correct, Kelley?
Yes, it
Great.
is.
Kelley, I am so excited to talk to you because it cracked me up, first of all, because I told you before we got started recording that I'm the complete opposite. I was the little girl that couldn't stop writing, little teeny notes everywhere and journals everywhere and dreaming about being a writer someday. And your very first chapter, you talk about how you were getting a message or a sign that you were to write a book, and you're like, I don't want to do that. I don't know how to do that because math numbers make sense to you. Let's talk about how you went from this very highly educated math teacher to becoming a mystic. Talk to me about the beginning. Okay. So I'm just going to say right here, 4-year-old, you got bit by a monkey. Let's start there.
Okay, so here I was, 4 years old, living in Santa Barbara, California, roller skating on the sidewalk, and a monkey jumps out of a tree onto my head, leans over, bites my shoulder, and I start crying and screaming, and I roller skate home, and my father's in the garage lifting weights, and I'm saying, a monkey bit me, a monkey bit me. My mom comes out of the house and they don't believe me. There's no monkeys in, California or the US for that matter, except in zoos. And so they send me to my room for lying. And so I crawl under my bed with all my little stuffed animals and I'm crying and crying. And a couple weeks later, my mom discovers that a neighbor had a pet monkey. And so it became this funny story that we told, but it crushed me. And I took this stand that people don't believe me. And even when I'm right, and I'm right, there was a monkey. But so this stand of always wanting to be right and be believed hit. And my whole life was kind of built on that. And the mathematics fit so beautifully because you knew when you got the problem right, So there was all this satisfaction. So then in 2007, when I began having these mystical experiences, or I like to say my spiritual smackdown began, I had all these experiences that who would believe them? I mean, I experienced them and I hardly believed them. So that's kind of
Okay.
how it began.
That really makes sense to me. When you were describing it in the book, it made a lot of sense. I'm thinking, okay, here's this traumatized little girl at 4, and she's not being believed. And so, you look for something that makes sense. And everyone says numbers make sense. Numbers don't lie, right? So, wow, for you to gravitate toward that career, that makes tons of sense. So that brings us up to plants talking to you. You have to clarify this for me. I'm like, huh? So now plants are talking to you. So you're going through a spiritual smackdown. Let's talk about what you mean when you say the plants were talking.
Um, Kind of just that, just randomly. I explain in the book this whole process of going on a hike in Mexico, and all of a sudden the area is talking to me, and I'm hearing, we have a message for you, from this little plateau. And earlier I had heard, we're alive, we're alive. And I'm looking out in the desert going, there has to be people out there, right? But there wasn't. And I realized it's the rocks and the cactus talking. And of course, I must be making this up. I must be going crazy. And, further on, and I describe it in more length in the book. But when I had heard we have a message for you, it came from this plateau, and I hike over there, and the plateau says, no, 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 my dear, you have to come back at night alone for your message. And I'm crying and hiking and get to my car, and then a cholla cactus says, hey, what are you going to do about your flat tire? And I look at my car, there's no flat tire. I'm thinking I'm going crazy. I'm just a math teacher, right? Plants, animals, rocks, they don't talk, right? So driving back to town, I get a flat tire. Uh, so then we're like, okay, so in my schema, in my world, with no religion, no spirituality, no metaphysics, plants don't talk. But in other areas, other cultures, Indeed, they do. So when I returned to Santa Barbara, I started looking up plant communication, and we discovered, in the Amazon with native people, yes, the plants talk to them. They say what they will heal. There's this oneness field where
Mm.
the plants communicate.
Hmm.
So,
Let's circle back to the thoughts that you were having. Like, am I going nuts? Am I imagining this? Am I really going crazy? Are people going to accept that one minute I'm doing algebra or teaching algebra to teenagers that don't want anything to do with it? The next minute I am communicating with nature and with the plants around me. How did you work through that? Did you go see someone?
um, at one point in time, I indeed did. I went to see a psychiatrist because I thought I was going schizophrenic.
Wow.
And because when I'm in the experience, it's more real than you and I right here having this conversation. It just feels more real, more me. I don't really know how to explain it, but that reality feels more real. um so when I came back from Mexico, and but I can't get the feeling back once the experience is over. That feeling is gone, so it no longer feels real. It feels like I made it up, or I just can't. Rational mind just can't explain it. With my upbringing and education and family experiences, right? Western cultures. So it was all pathologized. There must be something wrong with me. And I would have people say, oh, you must be, menopausal or something. So I indeed went to a psychiatrist, told him the story of the talking cactus, and it's saying, what are you going to do about your flat tire, and then getting a flat tire. And he just asked me, do you tell this story to anyone? And I said, no, 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 no. They're going to think I'm crazy. Absolutely not. And so then he described to me, well, you have discernment, so you're definitely not schizophrenic. I don't know about the plants talking, but you're not schizophrenic. And so momentarily, I was just so relieved, right? But as soon as I left his office, here comes the inner voice, the mind, the commentator. He's just saying that for $250 an hour. He doesn't want to have a psychotic episode. And the mind just tries to explain away and pathologize these experiences.
But they
So,
were almost like premonitions. It seems like throughout the book, you're having these messages are coming to you, and they're coming through different ways as well. There's color, there's sound, there's plants, like this young kid that you saved from drowning. Let's talk about Juan and how that came to be. I mean, that's wild.
yeah, that was, one of the first biggest experiences I had. And it just came about in a dream one night. And I typically don't remember my dreams, but I had this dream, and I was watching this kid playing in a pool, and he was playing on the steps. And in my dream, I saw him going under, come up, go under, come up. And I ripped the covers off my bed, dove to the floor, woke up, you know, and started laughing, going, "Oh my gosh, what a powerful dream!" And I end up on the floor to save this drowning child. And then 6 weeks later, the exact occurrence happens at the townhome complex where I lived. And I mean, just the details. And as I was in it, I was reading a book in a lounge chair next to the pool and watched the kids come in. They do all the comments that they did in my dream, but I'm not connecting to the dream at all. And I just keep looking up from my book to check and make sure Juan is on the steps, because he can't swim. And, angry that the mom's not watching. She's on a lounge chair reading a magazine, not paying attention. And then at one point in time, Juan's not on the steps, and I scan the pool and he's going under right by me. And I threw the book and dove to the side of the pool, reached in, pulled him out. He's barfing up water and starts crying. The mom comes and starts yelling at me. What did I do to her child? And that's when it hit me that it was my dream. And so I just start crying, going, what has happened? And then I go and because I had shared the dream story with so many people, my daughters, my students, because it was such a funny story to wake up on the floor,
Right.
powerful dream. But then to have it occur in real life and saving, like a 3-year-old child from drowning, the impact of that was just profound. But also it put fear in me because I didn't want to remember any dreams because I didn't know if the dream would be a premonition, and I would have, occasionally these scary dreams that are like, oh no, don't want that.
Right.
So it was part of a smackdown, really beautiful things happened, but it was scary because I could not use my mathematical, rational mind to explain these events.
Man, it is. It's really, you're the mom next door, right? You've got a
Mm-hmm.
couple daughters. You're going to all of the sporting events, and you're doing everything that a mom does when you're raising kids, and you're having these wild experiences that most people would, you know, think maybe you flipped your dome doily,
Uh-huh.
as my mother would love to say. Wow. Ah, man, I don't know which sticky note I want to go to. I guess I want to go to the hiking because hiking is beautiful up in Santa Barbara. I was with you on those trails. I used to do that all the time when I lived there. Just gorgeous up off the 154 and so beautiful. Um, you met a Hollywood fabulous icon. Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about Mr. Bridges for a second.
Uh, well, so like you said, I would hike often in the Santa Barbara trails, many days a week. And, mostly at the time I was doing math stuff and teaching stuff and lesson planning in my head or, complaining about whatever thing was going on or having discussions, just with that inner voice, redoing conversations, et cetera, et cetera. Just, average person, right? And when these experiences started happening, and it coincided with taking up a Ashtanga yoga practice, which I really, really didn't like, but ended up being there 6 days a week at like 5:30 in the morning, super not flexible, strong, but not flexible. And it just opened me up. I didn't realize that it was a spiritual practice, thought it was exercise. And so that's where I pinpoint these things starting to happen, and I'm in my 40s. So I don't have any mystical stuff before then. So I'm not in this realm in my childhood. So anyway, I'm under a oak tree, just sitting there trying to meditate, and I hear this voice, and it's like hearing your voice. I would recognize your voice, like I do, because I listened to you on the radio here years and years ago. But I hear this voice that's familiar, and around the corner walks Jeff Bridges, and he's walking with another man. But behind Jeff Bridges is Ganesh and Buddha. And I'm So this was kind of my first experience of seeing divine masters, right? So I'm just like, what? And Ganesh is just there and he's like, Jeff and the other guy are having this conversation, and here's this elephant god thing. And it's just like, ask me for help. It's just, ask me for help. I can help you. Remove obstacles. Um, so they walk by, and then, further on, I have other encounters with him, and I go past him again, and at one point he picks a leaf off a plant and shoves it in my face. Smell this, and I do, and I go into a state, and my teeth are chattering, my body's trembling, and he recognized, oh wait, something's gone on. And he's asking me, and so to try to get normalized, I say I'm a math teacher. This stuff happens to me with plants. I'm really connected to plants, but I'm also a math teacher, trying to be legit, right? Not crazy woman here. And so I love his question of, really, do we ever really need algebra? And I'm like, oh, well, probably not the way it's taught, but it could be taught in very different ways. And my career was all about teaching math to diverse audiences and teaching in ways that it could meet the learner's needs, so anyway. But he and Jeff Bridges ends up giving me some suggestions about meeting some people in South America and the Amazon. I would probably be more well suited there than excuse me, here teaching math.
Well, Kelley, this whole story is just extraordinary. And I just would encourage anyone that has had a mystical experience to pick up this book. It will help you a lot because, as you can hear, she's a math teacher and she is now a mystic. Um, Talk to me about K-Love because I love that story.
Okay. So I volunteer for this organization, Food from the Heart, and part of it is a harvesting program. And so love being in nature. And so harvesting is really fun. In particular, harvesting oranges and climbing inside orange trees is just a delight, So in this one encounter, I'm in the tree, collecting the oranges, and when we're done harvesting, this was in a ranch in Montecito, and I leave, I get in my Prius and turn on the radio. The song isn't what I want. I look at the screen, and on my screen is Wake Up. And then two stations are called K-Love. And I look and they're not K-Love. And so I'm perplexed, and I pull over to take a picture because I want to prove that, math person want to prove, you know. So I take a picture, and indeed it says Wake Up K-Love, and on the screen, and there's pictures of this in the book. Go away to a retreat, have some others. When I come, and I drive with somebody else to San Diego. When I come back, I want to check out my car to see if there's still those stations, and they've changed slightly. But then I go from FM2 to FM1, and all 6 stations say K-Love on my screen. Now they're different stations, they're numbers, it's 94.7 and 103.5 or whatever. They're all different numbers, but they all say on my screen K-Love. It was like, how can this be? It's impossible.
I love that you snapped a picture of it too. Because it's like, you're like, oh, I need proof. I need proof. I have to have the proof. You know, right before, every time I come out in the studio, I always have this little mantra and I open up and I ask for guidance for clear and concise communication. And I say hello to everyone, mom, dad, Budge, Dick Kernan, all of the souls that have gone before, my sister Lynn. And I'm telling you, Kelley, I have had so many weird things happen this morning in preparation for having you on. So there's something going on with your energy because I literally was out here getting ready, and all of a sudden my music switched over to When the Saints Go Marching In. And I started laughing because that's my dad. So I'm
Oh.
like, hi, dad, you know, but you must be manipulating energy, um, you know, and sometimes it's hard to, believe it yourself, but also you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You know, you're this woman having this experience, and you've written this incredible book with all of those experiences right here. So, um, I love it. So now, are you teaching math still, or are you 100% a mystic? What are you doing, and how are you utilize? Okay, two prong. What are you doing? And then the second part of that question is, what are you doing with this skill set, this amazing mystic talent that you've uncovered?
Um, well, I would say I am leading this divinely guided life.
Okay.
I just listen to, I have, full on communication with, spirits, divine guidance, higher intelligence, whatever. And so that's where I go. And it takes a lot of courage because it's not the norm. So I would come out, so that you said that I didn't have to prove anything to anybody. But little Kelley that was bit by a monkey wanted to be believed. And so, yes, this proof thing was always an underlying current. But I'm now in the place where, yeah, it doesn't matter if people believe me anymore. But I've had such a wide range of experiences. And for me, I didn't have people or information out there that had similar experiences, maybe some near death people. And so getting it out there to help validate others' journeys is part of the piece. So yeah, when the guidance came in to write a book, I did. When the guidance last January, not this past January, the January before in 2023 came to teach math again, because I really didn't want to. But here came in this opportunity, a school that I had taught with. It was actually the school I taught there multiple times in Santa Barbara. Um, but the school was in desperate need of a math teacher. And so a friend, messaged me, said, I know you're going to say no, but I have to ask. And no didn't come out. She asked, they really need a math teacher. It's 11th graders. It's algebra 2. It's at San Marcos. Okay. Favorite class, favorite age, favorite school that I've taught at. And a no doesn't come out. And so we're both shocked, right? So went and met with the assistant principal and said, I just have to be open here. I'm a mystic. I see dead people, ghosts, souls, whatever, I don't know what's going to happen. I can teach, but I need you to know that I have this other thing going on. I'll take my website down. And so ended up teaching the spring semester. And it was really, 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 really hard because so many things, I had my daughter's wedding was going on. My mom was hospitalized twice. Best friend of my ex-husband who was up for the wedding had a tragic death at not Magic Mountain, Mammoth skiing. And so holding that all together and an active shooter lockdown on campus and being able to teach throughout that because I'm in this state where there's a calm contentedness at all times. So even if there's like awful, awful things happening, I feel loved and taken care of. And so I have the strength to proceed, but really, really not my passion anymore because just seeing these teenagers and torturing them with logarithms and the technology that's changed. So cheating is really, really easy. And, just take a picture of a problem and the solution comes with the steps worked out right to your. Anyway, so I'm hoping I'm not teaching again. But also knowing why I went back. There was one student in particular whose mother had passed. And he came up to me kind of early on and said, I just need to let you know that my mom passed last month. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that's who it is. And of course I couldn't say anything to any of this, they're minors, right? So I was totally back in the spiritual closet. But on the last day of school, did have a conversation with him because his mother kept coming and with a message.
Hmm.
And so on the last day, and he's since moved from Santa Barbara. Last day, I said, okay, this is awkward, but I'm not only a math teacher, I'm a mystic. And so your mom has a message for you. This is really awkward. And he just said, oh, it's not awkward for me. My mom told us that she was going to give us messages.
Wow. Awesome. Wow. Okay, Kelley, from math teacher to mystic. I'm just going to say, I think you need to stay with the tree bush that is telling you to dance and the uncontrollable laughter at silent retreats. Cracked me up. I'm laughing. I'm like, good. You can't control it, and you just need to let it rip. So from math teacher to mystic, it's Kelley Baeza. Baeza?
Baeza.
Why can't I? Baeza. I am vowelly challenged. It's just something in my Michigan background. I don't know what it is, but I'm always messing up my A's and my E's and my O's. Um, it's extraordinary experiences on a spiritual awakening journey. Kelley, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'll tell you a little story when we get off camera too, because something happened in the middle of this interview. And again, technically, you're messing and manipulating something. So I'm gonna say it's you. Maybe it's me.
I'm
Who knows?
gonna say spirits.
Yeah, there you go.
Our
Lots of
peeps in the other room, in the next room,
yes,
right?
that's true. That is so true. Um, so no more monkey bite incidents. You just have to march forward and accept this mystic place in your life because I don't think there's any denying it. The experiences that you've had. And it's very clear to me that you're just a normal, lovely human being who is having these kind of otherworldly experiences right now. And I think the more that you open up, the more that the community of individuals will find you, like this podcast, for instance. I reached out to you. I normally never solicit for this show. People find me or come to me and say, hey, I want to be on the show. But I think in this instance, I saw you probably because your book was at Chaucer's. And I was like, and it's a great, 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 great mom and pop bookstore in Santa Barbara. So I saw that post, maybe it was on Instagram, and I was like, huh, math teacher to mystic. I need her on the show. And of course, you readily agreed. So just stay open and thank you for being on the next room. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Jane.
Do you have any final thoughts or words before we move on for today?
Yeah, I just encourage everybody. Everybody has their own beautiful journey. Um, I would just encourage people to be on the lookout for those signs from the other side. The divine, our loved ones, angels are always giving us messages, and just accept them and feel them, and they grow, and life becomes much more positive.
Yeah, that's good advice. A lot of people, they say, oh, I'm not getting any messages. I'm not, but I think, we have to be open. And we not only have to ask, but then once we do receive, we need to believe that it is indeed
Yeah,
a message and stop, there is no such thing as a coincidence, so
exactly.
it really is not. So we have to believe once we receive. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. It is Kelley Baeza. It is From Math Teacher to Mystic is the book. I will put links so you don't have to go try to find it. Thank you, Kelley, for being on the show. It is the next room. If you have an opportunity to be anything on the planet, please be kind. Thanks again for tuning in.